The first thing I noticed was the silence. I was in my home office that Saturday evening, hunched over my laptop reviewing spreadsheets, when the absence of sound struck me. The apartment next door was always filled with music, laughter, the hum of life. Lily loved playing old jazz records, and I'd gotten used to hearing Billie Holiday's voice drift through the walls while I worked. But tonight, nothing. Just an eerie, unsettling quiet that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. My name is Ethan. I'm 28 and I live alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Seattle with secondhand furniture and a balcony I never use. The place came furnished when I moved in 3 years ago, and I never bothered to change much. A worn leather couch, a coffee table with water stains, bookshelves filled with finance textbooks I haven't opened since college. I work as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. It's steady work, nothing glamorous, but it pays the rent and keeps me busy enough not to think too much about how quiet my life has become. I've always preferred quiet, actually. After growing up in a chaotic household with 3 younger siblings and parents who fought more than they talked, silence became my sanctuary. I moved to Seattle right after graduating from the University of Washington, desperate for space, for peace, for a life that was entirely my own. No drama, no complications, just work and the occasional beer with colleagues who never asked too many personal questions. Then I heard it. Not silence anymore, but something worse. Muffled sobbing through the thin walls. The kind of crying that someone tries to hide, pressing their face into a pillow or covering their mouth with their hands. My chest tightened. I knew that sound. I'd heard my mother cry like that too many times growing up. My best friend Lily lived next door with her boyfriend Marcus. We'd known each other since high school, back in Tacoma before life pulled us in different directions. She went to art school in Portland while I stayed local for college. We'd kept in touch, though, the way real friends do. Late-night phone calls, birthday texts, occasional coffee meetups when she visited home. When she told me 6 months ago that she was moving to Seattle and had found an apartment, I'd been thrilled. When she mentioned it was in my building, right next door, I'd laughed at the coincidence. "Guess we're neighbors now," she'd said, that bright smile lighting up her face. "You're stuck with me, Ethan. Could be worse," I teased back. She'd moved in with Marcus, her boyfriend of 2 years. I'd met him a handful of times. He worked in tech sales, drove a nice car, always wore expensive watches. He had that aggressive confidence some guys mistake for charm. I never particularly liked him, but Lily seemed happy, and that was what mattered. At least that's what I told myself. The sobbing grew louder, then stopped abruptly. A door slammed so hard I felt it vibrate through my wall. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway outside, angry and purposeful. Then came the sound of an elevator chiming, followed by more silence. My stomach knotted. Something was very wrong. I stood up from my desk, uncertain what to do. Should I check on her? Would that be overstepping? We were best friends, but there was a boundary between us now, a wall literally and figuratively. She had Marcus, a life I wasn't part of beyond friendly waves in the hallway, and the occasional dinner invite I usually declined. Then came a soft knock at my door, so quiet I almost missed it. 3 gentle taps, hesitant and scared. My heart started racing as I walked to the door. I looked through the peephole and my breath caught. Lily stood there, and she looked nothing like the confident, vibrant woman I knew. Her face was pale, almost ghostly. Mascara streaked down her cheeks in dark rivers. Her honey-blonde hair, usually styled perfectly, hung loose and disheveled around her shoulders. She wore a loose gray sweater and jeans, and clutched her phone in one hand and a small backpack in the other. But it was her eyes that gutted me. Red, swollen, and filled with a fear I'd never seen in her before. I yanked the door open immediately. "Ethan?" she whispered, her voice breaking on my name. Her whole body was trembling. "I'm so sorry to bother you. I know it's late. I didn't know where else to go." Her voice cracked completely. "Can I stay here tonight?" My heart dropped into my stomach. 1,000 questions flooded my mind. What happened? Where's Marcus? Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? But I swallowed them all. She didn't need questions right now. She needed safety. "Of course," I said, stepping aside immediately and opening the door wider. Come in, please. She hesitated for just a moment, glancing back down the hallway toward her apartment door. It was closed, a thin line of light visible underneath. Then she looked back at me, took a shaky breath, and stepped inside. I closed the door behind her and locked it. The deadbolt clicked into place, and I saw her shoulders drop slightly, just a fraction. She stood in my small entryway, looking lost and small, like she'd shrunk into herself. Her arms wrapped around her middle, still clutching that backpack like it was a lifeline. Here, sit down, I said gently, gesturing toward the couch. Let me get you something. Water?
There.
I think I have hot chocolate somewhere. She nodded but didn't move at first. Just stood there, staring at nothing. Then slowly, mechanically, she walked to the couch and sat on the very edge, back straight, hands gripping the backpack in her lap. She looked like she might bolt at any second. I went to the kitchen, my mind racing. I found the hot chocolate mix in the back of a cabinet, probably a year old, and boiled water in my kettle. My hands shook slightly as I poured. Through the doorway, I could see her sitting there, perfectly still except for the slight shaking of her shoulders. When I brought her the mug, wrapping it in a kitchen towel so she wouldn't burn her hands, she took it but didn't drink. Just held it, staring down at the steam rising. I grabbed the throw blanket from the back of my armchair and draped it gently over her shoulders. She flinched slightly at the contact, then relaxed. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly I barely heard it. I sat on the other end of the couch, giving her space, trying to figure out what to say. The silence stretched between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was careful, waiting. I watched her, this person I'd known for over a decade, and realized how little I actually knew about her life these past 6 months. We'd waved in the hallway, exchanged pleasantries about work and weather, but we hadn't really talked. Not like we used to. Finally, she took a small sip of the hot chocolate, set the mug down on the coffee table with trembling hands. "He's been different lately," she said suddenly, her voice flat and distant. "Marcus, these past few months. Angry about everything. His job, money, the apartment, me." She paused, swallowing hard. "Especially me. Nothing I did was right. The way I cooked, the way I cleaned, how I dressed, who I talked to." He started checking my phone, asking where I'd been, who I'd seen. I thought maybe he was just stressed. Work pressure, you know? I kept making excuses. My hands clenched into fists, but I stayed quiet, letting her talk. Tonight we had plans. Dinner reservations at that Italian place downtown. I'd been looking forward to it all week. Thought maybe it would help, you know? Remind us of how we used to be. Her voice cracked. But he came home already angry. Said his boss had criticized him in a meeting. He started drinking and then he started in on me. About how I never understood the pressure he was under. How easy I had it. How I was always spending his money. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. I tried to calm him down. Suggested we stay in instead, order pizza, just relax. That made it worse. He said I was always ruining his plans, always disappointing him. Then I said maybe we should talk about this when he was calmer. And she stopped, her breath hitching. He grabbed his phone off the counter and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall right next to my head. Glass everywhere. A tear rolled down her cheek. He's never done that before. Never thrown anything. Never been violent. I just stood there, frozen, and he got this look on his face. Like he was realizing what he'd done, but also like he didn't care. My heart was pounding. I wanted to go next door right now and what? I forced myself to breathe, to stay calm for her. I grabbed my backpack, the one I keep by the door with my laptop in it. I didn't even think, just grabbed it and ran out. He didn't try to stop me, just let me go. She looked up at me finally, eyes red and desperate. I sat in the stairwell for 20 minutes, trying to figure out where to go. I called my cousin in Portland, Sarah. She said I could come stay with her, figure things out, take as long as I need. "That's good," I said quietly. "That you have somewhere to go." She nodded. But I can't face getting on a bus tonight. Can't face the trip, the questions, all of it. I just need. Her voice broke completely. I just need one night where I feel safe. Where I can breathe. Can I stay here? Just for tonight? I'll leave in the morning, I promise. I just can't go back there. Not tonight. Lily? I said, and my voice came out rougher than I intended. You can stay as long as you need. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. However long it takes. You don't have to promise me anything. She stared at me, something shifting in her expression. Relief, maybe, or disbelief that someone wasn't asking anything from her. Thank you, she whispered again. And this time she meant it. This time, some of the tension left her body. I stood up. You take my bed. I'll sleep out here on the couch. Let me grab you some things. Ethan, no, I can't. Yes, you can, I said firmly but gently. Please, let me do this. She nodded slowly. I went to my bedroom and grabbed a spare t-shirt and sweatpants from my drawer. Probably too big for her but comfortable. When I came back, she was still sitting in the same spot, staring at her hands. Here, I said, handing her the clothes. Bathroom's down the hall. Take your time. There's a new toothbrush in the cabinet under the sink, still in the package. She took the clothes and stood, the blanket falling from her shoulders. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she stepped forward and hugged me, quick and desperate. I froze, then wrapped my arms around her carefully. She felt so small, so fragile. Thank you, she said into my shoulder, for not asking questions, for just being here. Always, I said, and meant it. She pulled back, grabbed her backpack, and disappeared down the hall. I heard the bathroom door close, the water start running. I stood in my living room, surrounded by silence again. But this time it felt different. Heavy with responsibility, with anger at Marcus, with fear for what came next. I grabbed sheets and a pillow from the closet and made up the couch. It wasn't comfortable, but I'd slept on worse. Through the walls, I could hear the faint sound of water running, and I wondered what she was thinking, standing under that spray, washing away this terrible night. When she emerged 20 minutes later, wearing my clothes that hung loose on her frame, her face scrubbed clean, she looked younger somehow. Vulnerable. She gave me a small, sad smile. Bed's all yours, I said. If you need anything, I'm right here. She nodded and walked down the hall. I heard the bedroom door close softly. I lay on the couch in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the apartment settle around us. My mind wouldn't stop racing. How long had this been going on? Why hadn't she said anything? Had there been signs I'd missed? Too caught up in my own quiet life to notice my best friend was suffering right next door? Down the hall, I heard the bed creak as she shifted. Then, faintly, I heard her crying again. Soft, careful, like she was trying not to let me hear. Each muffled sob felt like a knife in my chest. I wanted to go to her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I didn't know if that was true, and I wouldn't lie to her. So I just lay there in the dark, listening, keeping vigil, making sure she knew she wasn't alone. The night stretched on. Eventually, her crying stopped. The apartment fell silent again. And in that silence, I made a promise to myself. Whatever happened next, whatever she needed, I would be there. No questions, no judgment, no conditions. Morning would come with its own challenges. But tonight, she was safe. And that was enough. Except morning came too quickly. I woke to pale gray light filtering through my curtains and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't place it. Then everything from the night before crashed back. I sat up on the couch, my neck sore from the awkward angle, and heard movement in the kitchen. Lily stood at my counter, still wearing my oversized clothes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd found my coffee maker and figured out how to use it, which was more than I usually managed before my first cup. She turned when she heard me move, and I could see the puffiness around her eyes, the exhaustion written into every line of her face. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I didn't mean to wake you. I couldn't sleep anymore and I thought." "It's fine," I said, standing and stretching. My back protested. That smells amazing, actually. She poured 2 mugs, added cream to both without asking because she remembered how I took it, and handed me one. The simple gesture felt significant somehow, this small act of remembering. We stood in my tiny kitchen, sipping coffee, neither of us quite sure what came next. Sunday morning light filtered through the window, soft and gray. Seattle weather predictably overcast. Outside, I could hear the city waking up. Traffic humming in the distance. Someone's dog barking a few floors down. "How did you sleep?" I asked, then immediately regretted the question. What a stupid thing to ask. But she didn't seem to mind. "Better than I expected," she said quietly. It was the first night in months I didn't lie awake waiting to see what mood he'd be in the next morning. My grip tightened on my mug. "How long has it been like this?" She was quiet for a moment, staring into her coffee. It started small. Little comments about my clothes, my friends, how I spent my time. I thought he was just being protective, caring. She laughed bitterly. "I was so stupid." "You weren't stupid," I said firmly. "He manipulated you. That's what people like that do." She looked up at me, eyes searching my face for something. I kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I was better, it would go back to how it was at the beginning. But it just got worse. The anger, the criticism, checking my phone when I was in the shower, interrogating me about every text message. She paused. "Last month he made me delete Instagram because he said I was posting for attention. I told myself it didn't matter, that social media was stupid anyway. But it did matter. It was just another thing he took from me." I wanted to say so many things, but I settled on, "You're out now. That's what matters." She nodded, but her hands shook slightly as she raised her mug to her lips. "Sarah texted me this morning. She can pick me up from the bus station this afternoon if I take the 2 o'clock. She's already cleared it with her roommate. I can stay as long as I need." "That sounds good," I said, meaning it. "Having family close." "Yeah." She set down her mug. "But I'm not ready to leave yet. Not this morning. Is it okay if I just stay here for a few hours?" I know I said one night, but... "Lily," I interrupted gently, "you can stay. Make yourself at home. I'm not going anywhere." Something in her face softened at that. The tight control she'd been holding over herself loosened just slightly. "Thank you, Ethan. Really." I made scrambled eggs and toast, burning the toast slightly because I was distracted, but she ate it anyway. We sat at my small kitchen table, the one I usually ate standing at while scrolling through my phone, and it felt strangely normal. Like we were back in high school, eating breakfast at her house before school, her mom bustling around asking about homework and weekend plans. "Remember when we used to have study sessions at your place?" she asked suddenly, like she'd been reading my mind. "And your mom would make those terrible protein smoothies she was convinced would help us focus?" I laughed. "They tasted like grass clippings and desperation. But we drank them anyway because we didn't want to hurt her feelings," Lily said. And for the first time since last night, I saw a real smile. Small but genuine. We talked more after breakfast. Not about Marcus, not about last night, just small things. I told her about work, about the impossibly complicated tax return I'd been working on for a client who owned 3 businesses and couldn't keep his receipts organized. She told me about the graphic design work she'd been doing freelance, how she'd given it up recently because Marcus said it was taking time away from more important things. "I used to love it," she said softly, "creating something from nothing, making something beautiful. He said it was a waste of time, that I should focus on getting a real job." "That's bullshit," I said bluntly. "You're talented. I remember the portfolio you showed me when you graduated. It was incredible." She looked surprised, like she'd forgotten that about herself. "I haven't touched my design software in 3 months," she admitted. "I don't even know if I remember how anymore. It's like riding a bike," I said. "You don't forget." After we cleaned up breakfast, she asked if she could take a shower. I gave her a fresh towel and she disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the water start, and I took the opportunity to check my phone. 3 missed calls from an unknown number. My stomach dropped. I didn't answer, but I had a feeling I knew who it was. Sure enough, a text message popped up from the same number. Tell Lily to call me. We need to talk. I deleted it without responding. When Lily emerged from the shower, looking more like herself in clean clothes from her backpack, I suggested we get out of the apartment for a while. There's a coffee shop down the street that makes decent lattes. We could take a walk, get some air. She hesitated, glancing toward the front door like Marcus might be waiting on the other side. Then she straightened her shoulders. Yeah, that sounds good. I can't hide forever. We walked to the coffee shop 3 blocks away, a local place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. I ordered us both lattes and we sat by the window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. The normalcy of it felt surreal. Just 2 friends having coffee on a Sunday morning, like everything was fine. I called a lawyer yesterday, Lily said suddenly. Well, I emailed one. Sarah recommended her. She specializes in situations like mine. That's good, I said carefully. Having legal advice. I'm scared, she admitted, of what comes next. The logistics of it all. Getting my stuff from the apartment, dealing with the lease, dividing everything up. And I'm scared of him. Of what he'll do when he realizes I'm really gone. You don't have to do any of it alone, I said. When you go back for your things, I'll come with you. Or Sarah. Or a police escort if you want. Whatever you need. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. How did I get so lucky to have you as a friend? I'm the lucky one, I said, and meant it. We stayed at the coffee shop for 2 hours, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her dreams of starting her own design business, about places she wanted to travel, about the life she wanted to build for herself. I told her about my own quiet dreams, the ones I'd never shared with anyone. How I wanted to buy a small house someday, maybe get a dog, learn to cook something other than scrambled eggs. You'd be a good dog dad, she said, smiling. You have the right energy, calm and steady. Is that code for boring? I teased. No, she said seriously. It's code for safe. You make people feel safe, Ethan. You always have. The words settled between us, weighted with more than she probably intended. Or maybe exactly what she intended. When we walked back to my apartment, the afternoon sun was trying to break through the clouds. We climbed the stairs instead of taking the elevator, taking our time. When we reached our floor, I saw her tense, her eyes darting to her apartment door. It was closed. No sounds from inside. No sign of Marcus. Inside my apartment, she checked her phone and sighed. Sarah's waiting to hear from me. I should probably get ready to go. Are you sure you're ready? I asked. She thought about it, really thought about it. No, she said honestly. But I don't think I'll ever feel ready. I just have to do it anyway. She packed her few things back into her backpack, changed into her own clothes from the night before. When she came out of the bedroom, she looked stronger somehow, more determined. The bus leaves at 2, she said. I should call a lift. I'll drive you, I said immediately. Ethan, you don't have to. I want to, I said. Please, let me make sure you get there safely. She nodded, blinking back tears. We drove to the bus station in comfortable silence, my old Honda navigating through Sunday afternoon traffic. When I pulled up to the curb, she turned to me. I don't know how to thank you, she said. For last night, for today, for just being you. You don't have to thank me, I said. That's what friends do. She unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out immediately. Can I ask you something? Anything. If things get bad again, if I need somewhere to go or just someone to talk to, will you still be there? Even if I'm in Portland? Always, I said without hesitation. Call me anytime, day or night. I mean it, Lily. She leaned across the console and hugged me tight. You're the best person I know, she whispered. Then she pulled back, grabbed her backpack, and got out of the car. I watched her walk into the station, her spine straight, her head up. She turned at the door and waved. I waved back. I sat there for a few minutes after she disappeared inside, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my chest tight with emotions I couldn't name. Pride that she'd left. Fear for what came next. And something else, something I wasn't ready to examine too closely. Finally, I drove home. My apartment felt emptier than it ever had before. The mug she'd used sat in the sink. The blanket I'd given her was folded neatly on the couch. The space where she'd been felt like an absence. I picked up the blanket and held it for a moment, then folded it again and put it away. She was safe. She was with family. She was starting over. That was enough. It had to be enough. But as I sat on my couch that evening,